Give me another beat. Give me another beat. Nope, that's not it. That's the beat. Turn it up. Oh, word. Turn it up. I gotta hear it a little louder. Can you make it louder than my headphones? Turn me up in my headphones. I'm still stuck in the 80s/90s. Lottos, kangaroo boots, nanny ghosts, Velas, jumpsuits and troops, Junos, color Levi's, Bugs Bunny sweaters with the rhinestone ring on it. Fighting and making up the next day. Nobody getting shot. Working to hustle and to get it, a get got. We had love for the streets, our family, our foes, our friends. Respect for the elderly. Pager/payphone, sneaking into Adams Theater. Watching Crush grooving tougher than leather. Hopping gates out the college port to bank out, cause you don't wanna get caught at mom's crib or at Vaughn's crib. Eating funny dinner with the fam. Church every Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m. And even if I fell asleep in the back row or played sick, no matter what, man, I still had to go. 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper.
Greetings and salutations, ladies and gents. I am Josh Houselander, and this is webisode number 107 of the X-Cast. It's day 5645 in the search for Tim Chevelday. With me, as always, CEO of the EmpireMedia.com, Adam Hernandez.
Hello, hello.
Yeah. Oh, I should have introduced you as Bernie Bro. Because
I guess so.
Because tonight's topic, we're going to take the entire show. We're going to talk about Bernie Sanders, not just about him, but about his struggle, his plight, what's going on with him right now in the Democratic primaries, and just him in general. You know,
Who's debating right now? But
they are.
I think we it's right before we came on. Yeah, I made that comment, like, why are they even debating right now? Because who doesn't fucking know who they're voting for at this point?
It really is. You know, I mean, if you know, the conventions are coming up. I don't know. You know, Adam, that's such a good question, and it's one that people ask a lot. It's one that I've been asking for decades now. But I guess it matters. I mean, I guess there are people who are going to watch this debate, and then they're going to make their final decision in their upcoming primaries here soon.
Hey, we need, CNN, MSNBC, Fox. They all need their money. They all need their ratings. They all need,
yeah, I guess so.
The same talking heads to go up there and say the same exact thing.
Or is it just everyone has made up their mind by now? But these networks have to put this on, and then it's basically just a cheerleading match.
Well,
if you're one of the 7 people out there who's voting for Amy Klobuchar, it's just so you can watch this and then proclaim that she won the next day.
Well, doesn't this guy? Yeah, doesn't this? Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hear that all the time from somebody like MSNBC, who are probably the worst right now when it comes to judging this. When you have, Chuck fucking Todd and Chris Matthews, where the hell his name is, up there right now, trying to compare what happened to, in the Nevada caucuses and.
It's to France falling to Germany in World War II.
Exactly, or Chuck Todd comparing Bernie Bros to Nazi brown shirts, which, Chuck, conveniently enough, the people that you are comparing to Nazi brown shirts are supporting the first Jewish candidate for president of the United States. You fucking moron.
I know.
But, I mean...
Yeah, it is, that is a good one. Yeah, because that gets thrown around so much, the he's a Nazi thing, or he's like a Nazi. When Bernie is the first major Jewish candidate for president. We had a few.
I'm sure.
We had Lieberman as a VP candidate.
Mm-hmm.
He was a general election candidate for a cup of coffee there at one point.
Did he run as a Democrat?
I thought he did. Yeah.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah. Then on the other hand, too, I know a lot of people hate him, but Donald Trump's a Nazi according to those people too, even though he has Jewish grandkids and his daughter's married to a Jewish guy, or are like the Nazis. It's really convenient.
Well, I mean, Yeah, and I mean, look at all this. Look at all this stuff that Again, I've said it before. We've said it before. That's a perfect example of Donald Trump not really having an ideology, but again, being that political operator. That's what Donald Trump is. So
Yeah. Like you said, all the American people with fear tactics and basic, or
going on about Amy Klobuchar.
Absolutely.
it was crazy.
Well, somebody's got to finish third because Joe Biden has ran for president 3 times now.
And loses South Carolina. Holy shit.
I'd like to think that if I ran for president 3 times, I'd get third once. Think of the list of people who have won a primary. The Steve Forbes and Pat
in Iowa, Ted Cruz.
No, I mean Klobuchar. It hit me. I totally know that is who she reminds me of.
So she reminds you of your ex-wife.
But no, everybody's. Every single
eat salad with a.
I think so. Yeah, that's so she's got him up on that, I guess. Oh geez, but let's jump into Bernie because we could do a whole show on Amy Klobuchar. We're not going to. We could do one on Joe Biden. We're not going to, because like MSNBC, we like people to listen to watch our show. But I think the big thing in the room, the major question. I mean, let's just start off. And we should say, Adam is a Bernie guy. I'm not.
You are not.
I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm supporting one of those other 5 clowns on that stage with Bernie tonight. By the way, I want fairness actually, and if somebody wins this thing outright, I'd like to want him to. So, you think, bottom line, let's start off with the big question: is Bernie going to get the nomination?
I said it before when Aaron was here, and we were kind of doing this, months ago when this cycle was really starting. I think he is. I mean, now the DNC is going to do everything that they possibly can. I know this is kind of running into your second question here. They're going to do everything they possibly can. Not hard to deny the American people, especially after what happened in 2016, the way that the likes of Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the rest of the fucking rats in the DNC actively tried to circumvent their own election.
Yeah. They didn't try to. They succeeded.
Yeah,
they succeeded in stealing it from Bernie in 2016 and giving it to Hillary because it was her turn. I'm wondering, and even Hillary has made some comments that maybe we can't take it from him this time and that she will support him. Which
you know what, you keep your support.
Yeah.
We don't fucking want it.
Yeah, really, you can
go fuck yourself. Mm-hmm. Keep your fucking
whatever state Hillary Clinton is carpetbagging in this week, wherever she technically resides. I'm sure the Dems don't need her vote.
Maybe she's come to the realization though that whoever she backs is going to lose. So maybe that's her new strategy.
Maybe
to keep Bernie out of it.
I've wondered that. I honestly have wondered that.
From more so with Donald Trump in office than with Bernie Sanders.
Probably.
So fuck you, Hillary Clinton.
Well, they're old buddies.
Yeah.
I mean, the Clintons and Donald Trump, they're buds.
I mean, I know we're jumping around early here, but
sure.
Same thing with Mike Bloomberg.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Bloomberg. I mean, I don't. Is he really in it to win the presidency? Loss for
where I can't imagine he would lose the amount of money. Even if Bernie got in and did every single one of the tax the rich things that he wants and it all goes through Congress without a hitch, Bloomberg still wouldn't lose as much money as he's blown on this stupid election. Yeah. Right? I mean, the guy's just throwing money away. And I guess if he gets what he wants for it, then I guess it's not thrown away.
The sickening thing about that too, Josh, is it's money he could probably find in the fucking cushions of his couch.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, when you're an 80-year-old dude with $60 billion, and that's hey, that's fine. I don't even have a problem with it. But can I ask you another question? I guess a side question. This wasn't on our little rundown I gave you, but Why? I mean, is this just the media blowing it up? Why after they're like, well, yeah, I don't get it that we're less than half a dozen primaries in, and they're like, oh, this is who's
and momentum and forecasting on, okay, well, if Bernie is taking this state and this state based on this demographic, then who it seems extremely plausible that he's going to go and take this state and this state. I still think that there's a long way to go, and I do like Bernie Sanders, and I am supporting Bernie Sanders. I am not taking any early, I'm not high-stepping right now. I'm not pulling a fucking Deion Sanders and high-stepping at the 20-yard line.
Just so people wrong in this, voting for the D this time unless it's Bernie.
This podcast over the past year that I'm a communist. I'm not a Democrat. Not anymore. I have supported Democratic candidates all my life. My first election that I ever voted in was John Durst. I think before that I voted for Jennifer Granholm, Michigan governor. Again, another Democrat. But yeah, I'm not a vote blue no matter who. I think that there's a very, very good argument to be had that centrism, the status quo, is a huge, huge reason in Republicans. Is there any real difference between any of them? I mean, it was 38. He's one of those corporate Democrats that supported, continuing the Patriot Act. John Kasich.
Yeah. No, I don't see one. Yeah, what's the difference between a moderate Democrat and a moderate Republican?
No, and you know what? I'm in this country. I'm so beyond tired of the status quo in this country. I'm so beyond tired of the Democrats and the Republicans feeding us scraps off of the elite, the scraps of Obamacare. But we're still going to make sure we take care of insurance companies. It's going to be affordable health care, but affordable, Josh, may not necessarily, if we don't pay it, we're still going to pay it in some sense when it comes to our taxes at the end of the year. And not to mention, people are means tested the fuck out of when it comes to the ACA or Obamacare. Same thing, I know. When it comes to Republicans, oh yeah, you know what we're going to do? Namely speaking, the last tax cut, quote unquote, that the middle class got from the Trump administration. We're going to give you a tax cut, and it's gonna be great. It's a Christmas present for you. I think those are the words that Donald Trump said. What we're going to do, though,
the Democrats would have said it's a happy holidays present.
What we're gonna do, though, is a big aspect of this tax cut that you're gonna get is that we're going to not tax those bosses you work for. From all the money that they're going to be saving, they're going to be able to give you raises. That's what's going to happen. They're going to be able to give you raises. Try trickle-down economics before. You know what happens to that money that corporations end up saving? Well, it ends up being reinvested into the company. People don't, regular workers don't see that at all. Maybe they might have an updated bathroom or something like that. Or it goes into the end of the year bonuses for the CEOs and everybody on the board. Those are the scraps that poor and working class people get when it comes to the American duopoly from people like John Kasich, from people like Donald Trump and Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg. and Amy Klobuchar and Marco Rubio and people like that.
Do you know what the thing is with me, Adam? You know that my key issue, and a lot of people would claim that this is too broad on my lives and my family's lives. Watching the State of the Union, watching, Trump rallies or Democrat. But in essence, the only thing that's different, say, in what they... I mean, look at it by the numbers. Look at it on a piece of paper and pretend like you don't know whether there's a D or an R next to the person's name. Do people really think that Bernie Sanders is more anti-gun than Donald Trump? I mean, do people really think that? Well, you might think that if you watch a is anti-audience, so they have to be pro-Second Amendment because you watched the State of the Union address, and he said so. But are they? I mean, they're not. There's actually not a shred of difference. In fact, if anything, I can easily, and I don't feel like an amendment candidate than Donald Trump. I'll just say that and rest my case.
The thing with that, Josh, is I think Bernie does have, and I know this is going to be scary to some people, but Bernie does have some of his roots in, because Karl Marx was not somebody who advocated for strict gun control. Karl Marx was somebody who advocated for arming the working class. And this is something that people obviously get confused when it comes to people on the... When I say leftist, I'm talking about more radical people on the left. I'm talking about people who are more anti-capitalist, whether you're a Marxist, an anarchist, a socialist, communist, whatever. Many of those people are going to be against gun control because what it does is it disarms the working class and the working poor and the poor people in this country. Because something that Bernie Sanders says in a lot of his speeches, they're gun laws. He doesn't come out and say, he wants the people. That's not going and saying, we're going to, take the guns first and worry about, the court second, like what Donald Trump said. So I think there's some real differences that people need to make or people need to notice when it comes to somebody like Bernie Sanders and the rest of the Democratic Party, and in some sense, a guy like Donald Trump, because, and this came up today also, I mean, people trying to smear Bernie Sanders on the left as a guy who is supported by the NRA, and that's not the case. The NRA is, and again, we were talking about this before we went on, Josh, tonight. The NRA is a horrible organization when it comes to gun ownership, gun rights, and so on and so forth. The only thing the NRA is concerned with is gun sales and the gun lobby and gun manufacturers and making sure people are buying guns. They couldn't give two shits about, gun safety and responsible gun ownership.
No, well, I mean, the second the NRA gets their goal that they want, if we go back to the true Second Amendment, which to me it's right there, it's the highest law of the land. It's stated very plainly. If we go back to that, then the NRA doesn't serve a purpose anymore.
No,
we don't need an NRA. I don't want to have an NRA. I think it doesn't matter. I don't think the NRA is pro 2A enough. I really don't. I think that they want these laws so they can lobby against them later, and that's that. I want to be able to own whatever gun I want, and I don't need, just like I don't want the government's permission or don't need the government's permission, I don't want the NRA's permission either. Mm-hmm. It's none of the NRA's business, quite frankly. And if you believe in the Second Amendment and you believe in the Fourth Amendment, then then you shouldn't want an NRA bumper sticker on the back of your car. I mean, it's my my right to bear arms. It's my right to privacy as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't care. Personally, when I hear that people, are a gun lover and they're spending money on, and
NRA bumper sticker.
yeah, or an NRA lifetime membership, I always think, God, NRA lifetime membership, that's like $1,000. You could buy an awesome gun for that. Think about what you could buy with that instead.
You could buy an awesome gun with a fucking awesome scope.
Yeah, like, shit, I got an extra $1,000 laying around, and I'm a gun guy. The last thing I'm doing is giving money to the NRA.
That's a good point.
But that's just me. Honestly, a lot of people have a lot more money than I do. Adam, let me ask you something.
Sure.
As somebody who is an avowed communist
Mm-hmm.
and is also a Bernie Sanders supporter, does it bother you when Bernie backtracks on the word communist? Or backtracks when he is called a communist? I mean, because when he's called a communist, such as in the last debate, he was called a communist.
Mm-hmm.
He referred to that as a low blow. He said, I'm not a communist. I mean, he vehemently denies this thing. In fact, he even vehemently denies socialist by saying, no, I'm not a socialist. I'm a democratic socialist. To you, someone who studied this stuff, is there a difference? Is Bernie a true socialist? Is Bernie a communist?
Well, I like to refer to myself as I'm still a baby socialist, baby communist, because I like I said, I recently started to identify as a communist. I see myself as a libertarian socialist, anarcho-communist. This, like I said, a year ago, and since then I've been really taking it all in. I don't have all the answers.
Sure.
I'm still learning myself. I'm still learning about the ideology myself. And in fact, was it last week? I said that I was going to be doing a new show called The Manifesto, which is going to be about leftist talking points.
It's gonna be. Will it be kind of about your journey a little bit? Your journey
I mean,
towards.
well, the first show I'm going to be talking about why I became a socialist.
Okay.
But the thing with, I mean, am I mad that Bernie backtracked on the word communism and socialism, and he wants to be referred to as a democratic socialist? Not really, because the way that Bloomberg was trying to use it, he was trying to use it in a disparaging sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if Bernie had more time on the debate stage, he probably would have addressed it more. If it was up to me, I mean, I would love for Bernie Sanders to go up there and say, on day one, I'm going to go and disband the government, give it to the people,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. We're going to get rid of money. I mean, that obviously that would be great for me and for any communists out there. Obviously, there would still be a revolution to have to take place. But is Bernie a Is he a socialist? I mean, it's a good question. I think it's a fair question to ask. The thing, though, with the term socialists and communists and democratic socialists is it's funny because they are terms that are very, very direct, but very kind of deep, kind of at the same time. Because when you look at the terms, socialism is workers' ownership and control over the means of production. Communism is a moneyless, stateless, classless society, to each according to their ability, to each according to their need. Socialism, communism, it is, in some sense, too, an interchangeable word. Same thing with anarchy and anarchism. They are all philosophies that some believe advocate for one another. So in some sense, it doesn't matter which term you use, whether it's a socialism or communism or anarchism. To some people, it doesn't matter how you use it. I think Bernie, without a doubt, is a social democrat. I don't think there's any question whatsoever to be made. He is a social democrat. And what I mean by social democrat is he is somebody who advocates for social democratic policies. Much of that is what we see in Europe, like in Denmark and in Finland and Sweden. Policies where, you have Medicare for all, you have, more affordable education. Those are social democratic policies. Policies that you don't necessarily have to be just a Republican, just a Democrat, just a democratic socialist to be for. Because there's plenty of Republicans out there. There's plenty of Democrats out there that, support social democratic policies.
It's kind of like when they refer to somebody like John McCain, or earlier we brought up John Kasich was the name that got thrown out as a Republican in name only. Well, truth be told, Democrat and Republican are not ideologies, and they are political parties, nothing more. It's that means
conservatism would be an ideology,
right, or liberalism.
Liberalism.
These are the ideologies, but anyone can. In fact, I know people like this who vote Democrat, but they act like Republicans, and people who vote Republican and act like Democrats, but that doesn't make them any less a Republican or a Democrat. It's a club. It's a club that you sign up to be in.
It's a big tent club.
Right. I mean, it's a club you sign up to be in. It doesn't matter. You can be a Republican and oppose the death penalty. Mm-hmm. You can be a Democrat and
support the death penalty.
Yeah, exactly. They're mere suggestions for the most part. Some of them are harder than others to get around if you try to join these parties. But on a low level, you certainly can join these parties. So, I mean, Bernie Sanders is definitely a Democrat. He's joined the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. That is certain. Donald Trump is a Republican. He didn't used to be, but
he's the head of the Republican
Party.
Yeah,
he is a Republican now. I mean, that's how it is. Mike Bloomberg didn't used to be a Democrat, but he is now. He filled out the paperwork. Yep. He did it. So what I find kind of striking about the thing with Bernie, and hey, maybe it's just because there's a stigma on it, but for instance, we were comparing, also before the show started, Adam and I were talking about how, because much like Adam, I was a guy that at one point leaned more Republican. Mm-hmm. I've supported both, but I've supported quite a bit more Republicans than I have Democrats in my past. But also, like Adam, I'm done with the duopoly. I'm done with it.
You've mentioned. I was gonna say you mentioned some Democrats you like Dennis Kucinich.
Sure, yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. Even though I don't agree with a lot of what Tulsi Gabbard has to say, but
who's the one Democrat that was running in 2016?
Oh, Jim Webb.
Jim Webb.
I love Jim Webb. Big Jim Webb fan. Jim Webb Jim Webb was. I felt so bad for him. He was a man without a party. He was like, I feel like he was the last JFK Democrat left in the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. He was a small Democratic. He was a small government Democrat in a party that has so walked away from small government. But yeah, no, there are definitely some out there. There's they definitely exist. But I feel like if Rand Paul if someone jumped on him, and this has happened actually. If someone jumped on him... no, I'm going to backtrack a little bit on my statement. I'm still going to make it, though. If somebody jumped on him in a Republican debate and said, you're not a Republican, you're a libertarian. Like, you're a libertarian. I feel like he would say, well, I have a libertarian ideology, but I'm not a libertarian. I'm a Republican. I'm here. Mm-hmm. I'm a Republican senator from Kentucky.
Yeah.
I am a Republican, whether you like it or not. And some of his followers don't like it, like me, sometimes. But I feel like he wouldn't be so appalled by the label of libertarian. Although I will admit, I'm somewhat, I changed my thought here mid process because I do recall when they said that he did actually refer to himself as a conservative, and said that no, actually I feel like I'm the only real conservative left in this party, and tried to make that argument. But he definitely didn't say, he wouldn't say it's a low blow. I don't think, the way Bernie did, and I feel like maybe Bernie would have been better to describe it that way, to say, I'm not a communist. I feel like I'm the only liberal left in this party, or not. Do you get what I'm saying to some degree?
I do get what you're saying, Josh. But I think people need to be honest with themselves when it comes to just how taboo the word communist and socialist has been in this country, thanks to the indoctrination of people and the CIA kind of partaking in that.
Some pretty lousy communist regimes kind of helped in that too, though. Don't
Well,
you think?
the thing is, when it comes to something like that, I would love to see a socialist country work without having any American interference with it. Because when you look at it, I mean, you've had American, United States, CIA interference in a multitude of different socialist regimes around the world. And again, like I said, I'm an anarcho-communist, so if it's up to me, obviously they would have gone about things much, much differently. I mean, you wouldn't have had, your Marxist, Leninist vanguard parties, the dictatorship of the proletariat. You wouldn't have that. But in many, 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 many aspects, whether it's, the Bay of Pigs and how, the United States was, their embargoes on Cuba, or, the way that they've tried to overthrow and meddle in the elections in Nicaragua with the Sandinistas, or even more recently with, in Venezuela, when they're trying to topple the democratically elected Nicolas Maduro for Juan Guaido, who last time I checked didn't receive any votes from Venezuelans in that country. And what's the whole purpose behind that? Juan Guaido has promised to privatize the oil industry in Venezuela and open it up to Western investors and Western companies to go in there and basically take the country's oil. So, I mean, have there been instances of times when the democratic process was taken away in some of these countries? Has there been instances where civil liberties have been trampled on? Yes, there has. But like any other regime around the world, it's never helpful for imperialistic governments like the United States to go in and try to quote-unquote liberate these people. Because whether you're talking about Cuba or whether you're talking about Iran, what usually happens is leaders in that country will start to rein in their power, and it will make things less democratic. And
well, if you look at it,
it just doesn't help the situation.
I mean, if you look at it, Adam, this goes to your point. What do other world leaders do when their country is under attack? What has the United States done? Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. FDR started internment camps. They destroy gold standards. They freeze money. They freeze assets. They look at the the attacks on liberty that Woodrow Wilson did
Mm-hmm.
when we weren't even in World War I yet.
No, and yeah,
And these are things that happened, and
I mean, can you imagine, Josh, if
I mean, now granted, in a guy like Abe Lincoln, yeah, he gave those rights back. He felt he had to do that right then, and I'm not even here to try to bash, to do Abe Lincoln bashing. And FDR, I'm no FDR fan, but I feel like there's a modern thing nowadays where people like to say, oh, geez, FDR, he did the exact same thing as Hitler with the internment camps. Well, but he didn't, okay? Listen, the internment camps might be one of the biggest black marks in U.S. history, but the idea that it's even close to, gulags in Russia or concentration camps in Nazi Germany is ludicrous, and people sound dumb when they say it.
Yeah,
they do. It's ignorant. And that doesn't mean. Listen, I could do a show on how much internment camps sucked, and I could do a series of shows on why I personally dislike Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But but I guess the point being that when your nation is in peril, that's kind of a rough time to decide whether or not the ideology running your nation is for good or for ill when your nation's in peril. When things are hitting the fan, when things are getting really nasty for you.
I mean, if Mexico or Canada they decided, we're going to roll up on the United States and we're going to get ready to go to war with you. I mean, you could sure as hell bet that fucking martial law would be implemented, an hour ago, if that were the case. But again, I mean, another big difference too when it comes to all of this is if the United States isn't throwing around their military imperialism on socialist nations, they're throwing around their economic imperialism on there by implementing, just choking trade embargoes. Sanctions on these countries that they decimate the economy. And unfortunately, like many socialist communists who are living in the United States who have to go about their days, undertaking capitalist policies. Like one thing I hear all the time is, oh man, Bernie owns 3 houses, he's a millionaire. Or if you're a socialist, then why do you have, why are you using an iPhone right now? Well, it's because we live in a capitalist country. I mean, that's the way.
You don't see any hypocrisy though in Bernie owning 3 houses and having millions of bucks.
The thing with Bernie is, and I know, and I've heard this before. One of his houses, and he kind of made a good point the other day, because as a senator, he has to live in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
He has a house back at home in Vermont, and he has a vacation place. His vacation place is actually a family. It's owned by different members of the family of his family that he's in.
I mean, do you have problems with him when you hear that he put his wife in charge of his accepting the money for his campaign? So then, for all the campaign money that came in, his wife just got to keep 15% of it, and that's kind of how he's made his fortune.
Well, one of the big aspects of Bernie making his fortune, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, is it something that is necessarily good? No, but the thing is Bernie, much of Bernie's fortune came as a result of him being in Congress for as long as he has and writing a book, writing bestsellers.
Right.
But the thing is when it comes to socialism, it's if you're living in a capitalist country and you declare yourself as socialist, how are you accumulating that wealth? Are you doing that at the expense of workers? what would make Bernie a hypocrite, a true hypocrite in all of this, is if he was a guy like Mike Bloomberg, maybe not to that extent, but say Bernie Sanders owned a bunch of McDonald's franchises across the country, and he accumulated a bunch of his wealth through that. That would be a way that Bernie Sanders would be a huge hypocrite in all of this, is if he was making money off of the labor of other people. And that's something that is, I think that in and of itself is kind of lost in this whole discussion when it comes to Bernie Sanders and whether or not he's a hypocrite or not. Because that's not something that Bernie Sanders does. And in fact, one of the most socialist things that he's ever said, and he actually said it a couple days ago, was, or recent socialist things he's ever said, it was that he was going to make it so people working in, you know, in big business, he was going to give them the opportunity after a certain amount of time to actually obtain ownership within that company. So they would be able to go and sit on boards, and they would be able to go and determine, you know, basically what happens to them throughout their life based on where they work. That is probably the most socialist thing that he's said.
Yeah.
More recently. It's not Medicare for all. It's not, you know, forgiving student debt. It's something like that. But
Okay, so back to, I guess, the Bernie in an election. All right, I'm not going to try to put this nicely or sugarcoat it, but we know they screwed Bernie in 2016.
wait, do you want to do? Should we finish it whether or not he's actually a socialist?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you want more, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
Just another couple of points. Is Bernie Sanders a socialist? Well, again, there's two different types. There's two all-encompassing, you know, definitions of socialism or types of socialism.
Mm-hmm.
Socialism is inherently revolutionary, but there is an aspect of reform socialism too. I mean, that's not something that's made up and just, you know, brought out of thin air. Bernie Sanders is a reform socialist. That's what a democratic socialist is. They're going to try to reform the system through government. So Bernie Sanders, yes. Is he a socialist? Yeah. I believe he is a socialist. I believe that he is true to his word. I think that he is somebody that is authentic when he goes out there and he advocates for the betterment of workers and you know, and poor people in this country. Is he a revolutionary socialist? No. He's a democratic socialist. He's a reform socialist. That's what Bernie Sanders is.
That actually is a pretty good explanation of it, Adam. And that does make some sense. Because I admit, like you mentioned earlier, to me the words socialist and communist basically are interchangeable. I believe that through the understanding I have, through the research I've done, that they are interchangeable in the way of when I hear someone say, I'm a socialist but not a communist, I feel like that's a guy who's saying, oh, yeah, hey, I'm not drinking this weekend, and then they crack a Busch Light. Like, you're I mean, you might not be hitting it as hard as somebody else, but... But you're still right there, man.
I think there's something to be said with that, though, because I believe it was Lenin in... I don't know if he said it in State and Revolution or if he said it in something else, but he basically said that socialism is a prelude to communism. Mm-hmm. Which, that's not something that's made up. That's not something that is, you know, just pulled out of somebody's ass. I mean, there's something to that. And again, if you undertake a Marxist-Leninist ideology, then that's something that I believe that you're going to take it and you're gonna believe, through a vanguard party and the dictatorship of the proletariat. I don't think any of that should be discredited or anything like that. I think the bottom line, though, when it comes to all of this is I do believe in leftist unity. I do believe I don't think that it's in the best interests of anarcho-communists and Marxist-Leninists to be fighting. And same thing goes with democratic socialists too. I think we're all basically advocating for essentially the same things. So why fight each other about it?
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. They screwed Bernie in 2016. We know they did it before. I'm wondering why. And I know the basic answer that people want to throw out for this is because Hillary. It was her turn. She was the head of the party. We thought she was going to get it before, and she didn't because Obama was so fantastic. So now it's time for Hillary. Now, is that the only reason? Is that the real reason? And I'm okay if the answer is yes. But did they screw him in 2016 just because it was Hillary? Was that all Hillary?
Absolutely not. The reason why they didn't, you know, the reason why Hillary wasn't anointed and coronated in against Obama is because Obama was essentially a moderate Democrat who wasn't going to, you know, upset the apple cart too much. This time around, it wasn't because it was Hillary Clinton's time. The reason why they did it is because Bernie is a real threat to the corporate establishment of the Democratic Party. That's why they did it, and that's why you continue to see corporate media continue to rail against him. Because if Bernie Sanders is elected president, it's not something that's going to help mainstream corporate media like MSNBC or CNN or Fox News, who have to sit here and depend on sponsors and to make their money. Which, you know, when you pull back and think about it, isn't it a huge conflict of interest when you have, you know, when you're media and you have, you know, you have to sit here and worry about corporate sponsorships and whether or not you're going to upset them, or if you're somebody like CNN who is owned by AT&T. I mean, what can you ultimately report about here?
At this point, if people are still trusting the mainstream media, or if they think that Fox News and CNN are bitter rivals, I don't know what to tell you. You have, you know, you have some waking up to do.
It's theater. It's the same thing almost of, you know, when Nancy Pelosi ripped up the State of the Union speech. Oh my gosh, look at her resist.
Yeah, what a rebel.
What a rebel. Yeah, well, you know, she was a huge rebel when she voted for that defense spending bill. But
no, the second most powerful person in the most powerful country in the world is not a rebel.
No, she's not.
Sorry.
She's not.
You're not leading the resistance against
you
anybody.
Are not.
All right. I'm going to make a statement. Tell me if you agree with it. If, you know, you had said that you think Bernie is going to be the nominee, and a lot more people are saying that now, and you've been saying it longer than a lot of other people, but it seems like a lot of people are saying, like, oh, it looks like it's even the Bernie haters on the Democratic side. You're not hearing it from the Republicans yet because that fight isn't happening. But, in fact, turn on, the AM talk radio Republicans, and you think they're Bernie bros right now. They're all talking up Bernie. I mean, I caught a little bit of Hugh Hewitt's show this morning. And, you know, he's talking about how he voted for Bernie in the primary. And
they're trying to sabotage it.
Sure. And he claims, no, I'm not sabotaging it. I actually just want I just want the process. I want the fair process.
I don't buy what fucking you
neither do I. I'm just saying.
No, I know.
That, whatever, you know, I'm not here to question somebody's motives, for one thing, because motives are, quite frankly, motives are meaningless.
Yeah.
When it comes to whether or not you the what happens, how it plays out. But I think if Bernie doesn't get 50% of the delegates in the primaries, if they can manage to keep him from getting 50%, and yes, I do mean, he pulls out 49.98% of the delegates, and the other 50.01% are spread out between 9 other candidates, I think they steal it from him.
Oh, you know what? I wouldn't if it comes down to that, and then yeah, I would agree with you, Josh. And that's why it's so important now that Bernie Sanders supporters don't get cocky about it. They don't sit here and they don't think that it's in the bag because he has this delegate lead now. No, it needs to get to the point where you can't throw it to the convention because the DNC will at that point do whatever they can to fuck him over. They're already doing whatever they can to fuck him over now, without making it even more obvious.
Oh, right now they're doing everything in their power to screw him over within the rules.
Yes, exactly.
That's basically what they're doing right now.
Stacking the deck against them, and which is even ironic too because they end up screwing their own people over that. I mean, we talked about Kamala Harris, Julian Castro, and Cory Booker.
Sure.
Who tried to get the DNC to do him a solid, and they wouldn't do it. But Mike Bloomberg and his $60+ billion comes along and throws money at the Democratic Party. Then all of a sudden they open shit up. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that it's any. It's going to be shocking or anything like that they throw it to somebody else. And again, though, this is I think why another reason why people are so angry and people are so adamant about Bernie Sanders, because yes, he does speak to the working class in this country and in the poor in this country. And it's something like I said, it's more authentic. And this is something that Donald Trump did in 2016, which catapulted him to the White House in a lot of sense. The difference, though, is Bernie, like I said, is authentic. This is something that Bernie has been talking about his entire political life. These are Bernie's issues. Donald Trump wasn't fucking talking about this shit back in the 80s, in the 70s. No, Donald Trump was too busy fucking hookers in New York City and probably doing blow off their ass.
He doesn't do drugs.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. But you get where I'm going with that. And I heard a guy, independent journalist, the other day. I love listening to his show, Benjamin Dixon. He's actually the guy that actually blew shit open when it came to Mike Bloomberg and the stop and frisk recordings from Colorado a few years ago. But you hear people sitting here whining and crying about the Bernie Bros and how mean Bernie Sanders supporters are being on Twitter and whatnot. And he brought this up. He says, you know what? At this point right now, when it comes to people who are living paycheck to paycheck and at some point have to sit there and make a choice whether or not they are going to put food on the table to feed their kids or pay the electric bill. When it's coming down to that with some people, you're lucky that the only thing that is happening is Bernie Sanders supporters being mean on Twitter. You're lucky that it's only that right now. Because you look in some of these other countries, you look at a place like France and what they're doing and how they're taking to the streets, and you have firefighters going toe-to-toe with police officers. And
well, look at Hong Kong before the coronavirus popped in, coincidentally at the perfect time for the government to shut that down.
But, it's people are lucky. Elites in this country are lucky liberals in this country who think that they're making a difference by cheering on Nancy Pelosi tearing up a speech, or sitting there reading your economic magazines on how to be a more conscientious shopper, how to support the environment a little bit more if you buy this pair of shoes over another. You're lucky that it's only coming down to Twitter right now, because who knows what it's going to be coming down to next. Are people, if Bernie gets fucked over at the convention, if it comes down to that, is that going to be the tipping point with some people?
They may burn the city down.
Where they go and they start rioting in the streets over something like this. And if it comes down to that, can you really fucking blame them?
All right, so most people, you seem to think so. I definitely seem to think so, or definitely do think so. Think that if Bernie can't get the 50%, that they're going to give it to anybody but him. Mm-hmm. But what if he does? What if he does? What if he gets the 50% of the delegates? You think there's still a chance they're going to screw him? You think there's still a chance they're going to take it from him? I mean, they can technically. They can do whatever the hell they want. They were taking a court over this, and the DNC has said, "Nah, it's our election to rig if we want to rig it."
Josh. Yes, they are.
But that would mean that he doesn't get the nomination. I mean, if he gets the 50%, are they gonna?
They will do everything they possibly can to fuck him.
Because I'm honestly, Adam, I'm leaning more towards that. I'm leaning more towards, I don't think Bernie is going to be the nominee. Not because he won't earn it, not because he doesn't have the support, but I think they are going to find a way to take this from him.
I think it's going to come down to Bernie getting the nomination because he won within DNC's nonsensical rules. I think that's what it's going to come down to. So it won't have to come to that. But if it doesn't, yeah, I'm with you, Josh. I think that's definitely that's definitely going to happen.
And that's why I tried to start this show out for the people listening at home, that when I started this out, that Adam is a Bernie bro.
I'm not a Bernie bro.
I'm gonna keep calling you that.
Okay, whatever.
You're the original Bernie bro.
Okay.
You're like a Bernie dad. I don't know. But I'm not. But we're on the same side here because fair is fair.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and quite frankly, I'm sick of people who claim to be on the left. People who claim to be liberal, people who claim to be Democrats and the party of being inclusive, and who like to point their fingers, and they certainly like to point their fingers at everyone else, telling them that they're not inclusive or that something isn't fair. That then they handle their own primaries this way. They handle their own system this way. They're going to screw a guy who their people support.
What's funny too, Josh, is you don't hear quite that much about the vote blue no matter who now that Bernie's in the lead.
Well, of course not. No, of course not.
But before, when it was Bernie Sanders, before the Iowa caucuses, and Joe Biden was in the national front runner, then it's vote blue no matter who.
Biden might not be perfect, but come on, we're Democrats.
Yeah,
here.
we're Democrats. We got to get Trump out of office.
Right. Exactly. No, exactly. No, I mean, and you have comments from Hillary Clinton when she was trying to divert attention from the fact that her and Harvey Weinstein are old buddies. She is, when she's asked, she kind of begrudgingly has said, "Well, yeah, if Bernie is the nominee, I'd support him." Well, I would hope so. Mm-hmm.
You're the one.
You're the Democrat, right?
Yeah,
you're the Democrat.
Yeah, and you're the one that's still fucking blaming your loss on Bernie Sanders,
right?
Even though he did more campaigning for you than what you did for Barack Obama when he won the nomination.
Which I'll be honest, Adam. I mean, I know they got to do what they got to do, but it's a black mark for me on Bernie that he turned around and backed Hillary.
Oh, you know what?
And did the things he did for Hillary.
You know what? And there's plenty of leftists out there that aren't happy that Bernie did that. And yeah, but you know what? He's trying to be a good Democrat.
Yeah, no, he was.
He was trying to, you know,
waiting for his turn.
Yep, and again, Hillary Clinton is one of the biggest fucking pieces of shit in this country right now, considering that she will blame every single person but herself. She will blame Russia. She will blame Bernie Sanders. She will blame
the Electoral College.
The Electoral College. She will blame every single person but herself.
Deplorable people.
In her shitty fucking campaign that her and Robbie Mook undertook.
And you know, I mean, shitty campaign, yeah, that's for sure. How about she's a shitty person?
She's a shitty person.
And a shitty candidate, too. You know, maybe there's people out there that just don't want a criminal to be the president of the United States.
But the thing is, too, Josh, is like we were talking about earlier, if it was Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump right now, I mean, I think people need to be completely honest with themselves. How different would things actually be?
Yeah.
I mean, is the difference here that maybe Hillary Clinton would be a little bit more polished in her talking points? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, or I mean, would the difference just be we'd hear a different kind of complaining and fear tactics on the MSM every night? Yeah. You know, that would be true, but would it really be any different? No, it would just be Fox News complaining and CNN, you know, puffing their chest out instead.
It wouldn't be any. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be. You wouldn't see any vast differences that are going to make meaningful changes in people's lives.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, to any Democrat out there, whether you're high level Democrats or just you know, just the regular old Joe voting for the D, if Bernie Sanders doesn't get this nomination, I don't want to hear another goddamn thing about the popular vote. Okay, I don't want to hear one more thing about it. Just not like ever for the rest of my life. I do not want to hear about how Hillary was screwed by the popular vote, or we need the popular vote for the I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it like ever again. If you're, you know, because obviously popular vote's just a thing that you only want it when it benefits you. Because it's certainly because it's going to benefit Bernie right now. It should be benefiting Bernie. Yeah. He's got it. Well, he's got it in the bag.
Well, it's funny too. You know, when they had him raise their hand on stage the other day, I think Chuck Todd was the one that asked this question about, you know, following the rules or going by the popular vote. You know, the will of the people. It was Bernie Sanders the one raising his hand for the will of the people, and it was the other ones. Oh, let's just follow the rule. Let's do this.
And okay, kind of in conclusion, or working towards conclusion. There's a few sub questions behind this one, but without us, you know, breaking into a huge tangents here, why don't the Democrats want Bernie as the nominee?
I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's just, it's fucking with their corporate interests. That's what it comes down to.
I mean, because by their polls, and sorry, but just with the history of polls, I refer to polls as their polls when talking about the Democrats, because they're the ones that run them. They do, for the most part. But, I mean, by their polls, Bernie does better against Trump than all those other candidates. You know? I mean, he should be the guy they want if we're to believe their polls. I mean, are they afraid? I mean, I feel like a lot of them are saying that they don't like Bernie because they're afraid he's going to lose. I mean, are they afraid he's going to lose to Trump? Are they afraid he's going to beat Trump?
They're afraid he's going to beat Trump. That's I think that's what it comes down to here. And I'll tell I'll tell you why, Josh.
Would they rather have Donald Trump than, and I'll let you go in, but just so you can conclude this in your answer, would they rather have Donald Trump than Bernie because at least then they have an enemy rather than a supposed ally they can't control?
In some sense, but it's not because they have an enemy. It's somebody that works better with their interests. And it all comes down to money with all of this.
Sure.
And I'll tell you why it would work out that way, and why Democrats, why establishment Democrats are so terrified of Bernie Sanders. Because why does somebody get elected in this country? Because people like them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what people want. People were afraid of Donald Trump, or the Republicans, establishment Republicans were afraid of Donald Trump because if that was what happened, they're going to have, if Donald Trump gets into office, then it would be because of, in some sense, the will of the people.
Yeah.
And the way that Donald Trump was talking during his campaign, I think that was very upsetting to a lot of people. Not about really the xenophobic stuff that he was, spewing, which is fucking awful, but how he was talking about, working for middle-class people. Again, something like that is upsetting to the elites in this country who run this country.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the case, then they're going to have to change the way that they campaign themselves. They're going to have to change their because they ultimately work for their constituents, right? Or that's at least how it's supposed to be. And in some sense, we see what the Republican Party has done. They've molded to become Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And in some sense, it's not that big of a deal for them because Donald Trump has, he's maintained a bunch of his big government corporate policies.
Mm-hmm. One thing I will say, a major compliment to the Republican Party. I will give them this. I'm not a Trump fan. Never have been.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think I ever will be. I can't see me changing on this time soon. But one thing I will give the Republicans, their primaries are fair. They didn't want Donald Trump with the same zest that the Democrats don't want Bernie Sanders. But at the end of the day, they voted. Trump won. He became the nominee, and they supported him.
And they had to conform to it because, Josh, if they don't, then they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to lose their jobs to the voters. And you look at a guy like Lindsey Graham, who was a staunch, Trump hater during
he's about to be an ever Trumper. And
during the elections. Wasn't. I mean, fuck, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, made fun of Ted Cruz's wife. Said that his dad assassinated JFK, yet is Ted Cruz backtracking on his support for Donald Trump at this point? No. And the reason why that happens is because Donald Trump is incredibly popular with Republicans around this country.
Yeah.
And if you have Republicans in Congress and in the Senate saying that they don't agree with Donald Trump, they're going against Donald Trump, and they're going to end up losing their job. They're going to end up being voted out of office. And luckily for them, in some sense, like I said, Donald Trump has maintained a lot of his big government policies, a lot of big corporate policies. So that's cool with them. That's cool. That's something that they win in some sense because, you know what? Maybe we have to change somewhat when it comes to, Donald Trump's more hardline immigration policies. But at least we get to sit here and maintain a big government full of, big corporations. We get to keep our lobby. We get to, keep the cash flow coming into the Republican Party. Democrats are looking at this in the same sense. They're saying, you know what? If Bernie Sanders is elected president, then it's going to be because of the will of the people.
Sure.
And if that's what happens, then you know what? We're going to have to change who we are and what we stand for and what we, and we're going to have to do that or else we're going to get voted out of office.
Sure.
And that's ultimately what they're afraid of. They're afraid of having to change. People like Nancy Pelosi and, Adam Schiff or, a bunch of these other corporate Democrats in there, they're going to have to end up changing the way they go about, working their constituents. And that's terrifying, I think, to a lot of them.
All right, one more thing that I was going to phrase this as a question, but I'm not going to phrase it as a question. I'm going to say it as a statement instead. And if you want to chime in, still
Sure.
chime in, as you would if it were a question. But to me, this is obvious. The Democrats, they aren't afraid that he'll lose to Trump. They aren't afraid that he'll win against Trump. They aren't afraid that he will, that the people like him or people don't like him. I think this isn't a thing that, I don't think this is anti-socialism. I don't think it's anti-communism. I don't think it's anti-ideology. I think it's anti this man. I think it's anti-Bernie Sanders because they're afraid that they can't control him.
Maybe.
And I think that's really all it is. I think it's just the individual. I think people trust him, and they don't trust him, not because he's not trustworthy, but because he is trustworthy. Because they won't be able to control him. That they can't trust Bernie to keep their secrets. They can't trust Bernie to not play the game. They can't trust Bernie to not play ball once he's in there. Where a lot of these guys are fringe people when they win over the people and inevitably win the nomination and possibly even win the presidency or a senateship or a governor or whatever it is. But they know that, well, when the shit hits the fan, when this gets real, we'll control this guy. But this 78-year-old, not communist, who is running and who's really energizing the people, young people especially, I think they just don't like him because they can't control him. And I really think that's all it is. I think if Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren was saying the exact same thing, it would be no big deal. No. Because they will control them once they get the presidency.
Well, I think you're right, Josh. I don't disagree with you. I think you're right. I think that you could draw some. And this might this is going to further upset some Democrats. And it's going to make them even more fervent in their never Bernie mentality. But you could draw some parallels between Bernie Sanders right now and his campaign and what Donald Trump was running.
Oh, absolutely.
With. I mean, as far as the support that he has, just the enthusiasm he generates with his supporters, and just the thought of the mainstream aspects of the Republican Party back in 2016 and the Democrats now of thinking they won't be able to control him.
If you know what, Adam, I'll say this too. If there's any truth to the idea that Bernie has a better chance of beating Trump than other people, I think it's only not because of his ideology. I think it's because Bernie energizes the same type of people that Donald Trump energizes. People that don't always vote. People that don't always care. People that were priorly apathetic to this system. Yeah. Bernie and Trump, again, two people I don't care for with Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, but they both energize people who feel they have been marginalized.
Well, I think it's I think you're absolutely correct in that, Josh, because it's people that you're not hearing the same things that the status quo politician is going to give you. And Donald Trump in many senses turned into a status quo type of politician. Because again, like we said, I don't think there's much difference between him and somebody like Hillary Clinton. But you're right. But I mean, even so, you can go and you can still draw these comparisons too in the way that Bernie's treated, as opposed to somebody like Barack Obama's treated. You go back to those Cuba statements that Bernie was making.
Sure.
When he actually went and he denounced the 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 authoritarian, quote unquote, dictatorship in Cuba, but he praised the their literacy programs.
Sure.
He praised their healthcare programs there, which, you know what, are worth praising because Cuba has done a phenomenal job in managing and undertaking these programs in that country, despite what these economic sanctions from capitalist hegemony has done to them. Again, he was mixing his criticism with praise, something that Obama did in Cuba back when he was president. But you didn't hear these moderate Democrats go and denouncing Obama or anything like that. You didn't hear a peep out of them. And it's just it's stuff like that is just it's so ridiculous because you go and you look at it and you wonder, like, okay, well, are these Democrats afraid that he's going to start just cozying up to these dictators and making life for these dictators easier? No, that's not the case. Or is he going to come out and be incredibly authoritarian and limit civil liberties, which is fucking kind of stupid because isn't it a guy like isn't Bernie Sanders the one that wants to give inmates in prison the right to vote? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense how they're approaching this, which leads you to believe the only thing that they're worried about is the way that he's going to shake up this corporate system that we have in our government when it comes to that American duopoly. That's what they're afraid of is fucking with that duopoly. That's what it is.
And Adam, I'll say for the record, I disagree with Bernie completely on that. I also disagreed with Obama on that. But I think you're 100% right to point out the hypocrisy.
And you know what?
I think you are absolutely right to point out.
And one thing, Josh,
Democrats have been talking out of both sides of their mouth with this for 40 years. This isn't new.
And the thing is, though, Josh, it's Republicans and Democrats would be the first one, and it's the same moderate faction of both parties that will go out and praise the leadership of Saudi Arabia,
right?
Who have one of the worst human rights records in all the world,
right?
Yet it's the United States that wants to that sits there and continues to do business with them. Not to mention
business and I mean, you can say cozy up. They go there and they kneel and they kiss their hands.
Exactly.
I mean, it's pathetic.
Exactly. Not just that too, Josh. Before we went on the show today, we were talking about how the United States continues to shake hands and be friends with Modi in India, who is leading a neo-fascist government in that country. And it's not just Donald Trump that's doing that. Barack Obama did the same exact thing.
Oh yeah, big time. No, for sure. Listen, I want to make, as we wrap this up, as we close, I want to make one more statement. I'm not even going to say anything to it. This is a question that, and Adam, if you want to jump in, I'll give you the last word. But this isn't really a question I'm posing to you and I. This is a question I'm posing to anyone listening, anybody who cares.
Sure.
And that's, listen, we have a political duopoly here, as we've stated many times on this show, on this episode of this show, on other episodes of this show, and on other shows here on the EmpireMedia.com.
You know what? I don't like calling it a political duopoly. It's a political monopoly.
I agree with you.
That's what it is.
And that's on our show that we talked about the duopoly. We talked about how the duopoly is fake. The duopoly is fake. It's run by this organization that is the Republicans and the Democrats. But the question that I would like people to try to ponder for a minute.
Wait a second. Wasn't there something called the Republican Democrats?
The Democrat Republicans?
Maybe that's what the new party should be. Maybe they should
By the way, if you look at, I would love to be in that party. That party is shamed. Is shamed for what they believed in because of what the Democrats and the Republicans have done to those words. Because the party of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and James Monroe and John Quincy Adams that were Democrat Republicans. Those were patriots who I would certainly love to get behind right now. But we know that I'm picking a little bit. I'm picking on the Democrats harder than the Republicans right now because that's
the primary.
Right. That's the primary at hand right now. We know that they're cheating. We know that they've rigged a primary in 2016. That they're doing what they can to rig this one. We all saw what happened in Iowa. To call what happened in Iowa a shit show is being far too polite. It was a disaster, and we all know why they were doing that disaster. It wasn't a disaster because it was a disaster and they're dumb. It was a disaster because they didn't like what's happening, so they threw a match in it. They doused it in oil and threw a match on it. The question that I have for people out there that I would like people to try to sit and ponder. We know they cheat. So if they cheat, when will they really cheat? We know that these parties are cheating. We know that they don't care about fairness, don't care about honesty. They care about the outcome. So if we know that they are cheating in their own primaries, at what point do we start to question our real elections? At what point do we start to wonder if the general election is really the outcome that they tell us it is? Because I know I don't get to count all the 100 million votes that get cast. I know Adam doesn't get to, and I know you guys out there listening don't get to. So we know they're cheating. At what point, when these same people are running the general election, and the senatorial elections, and the gubernatorial elections, and Congress, and city mayor, and regents, and city council, at what point do we wonder if the cheaters are cheating? At what point do we question that too? Now, Adam, is there anything you want to throw in there?
I was going to say that's why it's just so, it's so asinine, and just so ridiculous when people are still, bringing up Russia and bringing up, talking about free and fair elections in this country when we see what's happening with the DNC right now. We see what the United States has done to elections around the world. Don't give me this shit that, America is, some standard that, everybody else needs to live up to, because we do shit dirty here too. Mm-hmm. And we inflict that dirtiness on other countries. We do it all the fucking time. And you know what? It's even worse with the United States, because in some cases, if they don't get the result in the election they like, they undertake a coup against that government.
Sure.
That was elected. So don't sit here and try to be all high and mighty about free and fair elections and whatnot, because you can start talking about that the minute that the United States stops meddling in other countries' elections, or when the DNC stops, fucking up shit to their own benefit within their own primaries.
Sure. No, as for me personally, I'm not concerned with someone who maybe doesn't have the cognitive capacity to make up their own mind. I'm not concerned with that person's vote being swayed. I'm concerned with that person's vote being counted inaccurately. Mm-hmm. I'm concerned with the fact that maybe after they try to do all that swaying and it doesn't work, that they'll just change it. They'll just change it, And I know I'm the conspiracy theorist, right? That's me, I mean, that's, Okay, we're here at the Empire Media. Adam's our resident communist, and I guess I'm our resident tinfoil hat. But you know what? I'm sorry, really. How long are you supposed to trust somebody that you know is dishonest? How long are you supposed to think that the cheaters aren't cheating?
But look what they do in other countries. If they don't if they don't like the outcome, they will orchestrate a coup.
Exactly. We know they're cheaters, but for some reason we don't think they're cheating.
They tried to do it in Cuba. They tried to do it. They recently tried to do it in Venezuela. They did it in Iran, which led to the Islamic Revolution there.
No, it's why I know, again, I'm crazy, but it's why I oppose things like when I hear that they have a new app that they're going to use for something, or they are going to
developed by a company called Shadow.
Yeah. I mean, really, why are people on board with the idea of voting digitally? There's always this idea. There was this base idea back in the 17, 18, and 1900s. I guess I can just say 1900s now that we're 20 years into the 2000s. There in those three centuries, there was this idea that these paper ballots existed, and if they cheated, it'd be damn hard to do. But somebody could go back and count them.
Yeah.
Somebody could go back and figure it out. But if it's digital, guys, if it's all done on a computer, you just press a button and it changes. You do. You just press a button and it changes. I mean, really, to me, I do a lot of work and a lot of research, and we're wrapping up, but into third parties. And for whatever reason, I already think those numbers are bogus. I'm not saying Gary Johnson won the presidency or that Jill Stein really got a tenth of the population. No, I'm not saying that, but I think those numbers are wrong. I do. I think more than 1% of the population voted for somebody other than Trump or Hillary. And are they not? Now is it chalked up to they don't bother to count them all the way through when they're not, when they're not gonna matter, because you can chalk some of it up to that, but God, doesn't that really help the duopoly? Or the monopoly that is the duopoly to downplay those numbers, because that person that the idea that they only got 1% of the vote, and when maybe it would sway a few more people when you found out that they really got 7.
Well, it further pushes the narrative that if you vote third party, you're throwing your vote away.
Right, because God, if we keep telling them it's 1%. When it was really 6. Shit, next time it might be 8.
Or 10. After that, it's
might be 11, 15.
And all of a sudden, if people start getting on board with third-party candidates, then there goes that monopoly.
It's over.
The duopoly,
Then it's all over. So I really, if what I said sounds crazy to people listening, that how long can we trust the cheaters not to cheat? I ask you to please just sit and try to ponder that question for 3 or 4 minutes instead of just discounting it altogether, because I think it's something to be worried about. I think it's something that we all should be worried about. But hey, everybody, this has been the XCast number 107. I'm Josh Houselander. Adam Hernandez is with me. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. Hope you guys got some stuff out of it. The XCast is not a politics show. That's not what we do. We talk about many different things, but
we have a politics show.
We do have a politics show, Politics of the Empire, that is dedicated to not news of the day, but politics ideologically and philosophically.
With our resident status.
Yes, with our resident status. Dorf. But this isn't a politics show, but next week here on the XCast in this time slot, you can probably look forward to some more politics. We're in the heat of it now with primaries and everything else, so you can definitely look forward to this show probably being pretty politic heavy for a good part of this year. Doesn't mean that's all we talk about because it's not a strictly politics show, but we will be more of that, and you can definitely count on next week. Probably being pretty political again as well. Maybe a focus on a candidate like we did today, or maybe just a focus on the situation at large. But again, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This has been XCast number 107. I am Josh. He's Adam. Thanks for tuning in.
Feel the burn, everybody.
Or not.
Or so.